of the 2023 Interim Joint Committee on Education. I'm going to ask members in the audience to please silence your cell phones. We do have a packed agenda today. So with that in mind, I'm going to ask our first presenters from Gifted Education if they would go ahead and come to the table and be getting prepared while we are going through our minutes and roll call. Before we do that, the General Assembly, the legislative community, has lost a dear friend, Ms. Judy Taylor. She was a legislative agent here for about 40 years. And she always had a warm smile, was welcoming, and I doubt if there's a member of the General Assembly who has not eaten her cookies. Such a sweet lady, and she's actually having a memorial service in the House chambers at noon today. Can we have a moment of silence in honor of Ms. Judy Taylor? Amen. Thank you so much. I'm going to ask Mariah to please call the roll. She's over here. Okay, she moved on me today.
Senator Carroll. Senator Funky Fromeyer.
Present.
Senator Givens.
Here.
Senator Higdon. Senator Meredith.
Present.
Senator Neal. Senator Stivers. Senator Thomas. Senator Tishner.
Here.
Senator Williams.
Here.
Senator Wilson.
Here.
Senator Wise.
Here.
Representative Baker. Representative Ballman.
Present.
Representative Bojanowski.
Here.
Representative Brown. Representative Callaway.
Present.
Representative Decker.
Present.
Representative Jackson.
Present.
Representative Lewis. Representative Massaroni.
Here.
Representative McCool.
Here.
Representative Rayburn. Representative Rawlings.
Here.
Representative Raymond. Representative Riley. Representative Timoney.
Here.
Representative Truitt.
Here.
Representative Weber.
Here.
Representative Wilner. Co-Chair West.
Here.
Co-Chair Tipton.
Here. Thank you. At this time, I do have an introduction I want to make. We have a new Education Committee analyst, Mr. Peter Wright. Where's Peter at? There he is. Thank you for being here, and look forward to working with you, Peter. Representative Timoney has asked if he could make an announcement.
Thank you, Chairman. Over this interim, I've been very reflective about the different things that we're doing in Kentucky for education. We've been having many discussions on teacher pay and retention. We passed a classroom management bill. We've been focused on improving literacy strategies. We've increased SEEK funding. We've done big things, big rock ideas, driving education forward. In my opinion, we must continue to increase our attention circle to include school-based leadership effectiveness. I think it's a logical next step. School-based leaders are the ones that must carry the load and maintain a climate for our teachers to shine and our students to learn. We must look at the conditions our teachers are teaching in. And if we're losing good teachers, all the work we've done on the front side has been worthless. We must focus on high-quality instruction and keeping them. With that being said, I'll be forming an informal work group focusing solely on retention. The teacher groups that we have been identified in Kentucky and across the country that need extra attention: science and math teachers, special education teachers, and vocational and technical center teachers. I don't think that I've said anything today that people would disagree with, and this problem is huge, and I think it's important that philosophy, well, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And I think that if we can do this surgically and address these needs and focus on our retention numbers, we might be able to keep some teachers in classrooms. Teachers are leaving the profession. They're not just leaving to go to other schools. They're leaving the profession altogether. And when they're leaving, we're leaving Kentucky behind. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Representative Tipton. Do any other members have any introductions or comments at this time? Senator Meredith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just I'm very pleased he'll make a presentation later on, but I want to introduce one of the superintendents from my district, Mr. Keith Haynes, who's with the Cloverport Independent School System, and ask him to stand to be recognized. And appreciate him being here today.
Any other members? Seeing none, there is a copy of the minutes in your folder. Should have been sent to you online. I have a motion to approve. Motion. A motion. Is there a second? A motion is second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Motion carries. All right, down to business. Our first item on the agenda today is gifted education means economic development in Kentucky. I would ask if the presenters make sure that your green light is on your microphone, and you need to make sure those microphones are pulled closer to you because sometimes we cannot hear you if they're not close to you. So if each of you will identify yourself for the record, and then I'll swear you in, and then we may proceed.
I'm Allison Mefford, Executive Director of Kentucky Association for Gifted Education.
I'm Austin Carver, the board member for the 4th District for CAGE.
I'm Julia Link Roberts, and I'm the Mahurant Professor of Gifted Studies at WKU.
Okay, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much, and please proceed with your presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, Education Committee. Thank you, Chair Representative Tipton and Senator West, President Pro Tem Givens. Thank you to all of the Education Committee that is here today. Your commitment, your service to our state is tremendous, and your focus on education means so much to students all across Kentucky. We thank you for your service and for your vision for education. Thank you for the $10 million that you dedicated to gifted education in the 2022 budget. Your demonstrated investment means you value gifted education just as I do. I'm Allison Mefford, and I'm the Executive Director for the Kentucky Association of Gifted Education, or what we refer to as CAGE. CAGE has a long history, 45 years of advocacy for students. Our focus is gifted students all across our state, all school districts, all 120 counties, and we advocate on their behalf. And we come alongside the educators, the families, the interested community members that want to build a strong, vibrant, gifted education program, because we know that benefits not only that student, it benefits that school, it benefits that district, and it benefits our state. And I want to tell you today stories about these students and how it does impact our economic development. I want to introduce Austin Carver. He's from Oldham County. He is the Director of Data Architecture at Samtech. He is also a fellow CAGE board member. And Dr. Julia Link Roberts, Mahurant Honors Professor at Western Kentucky University, also a CAGE board member. They will share their stories with you. But why are we here today? It's because of gifted education and the value that we see in it, and we know that you see in it too. There are over 86,000 gifted students identified across the Commonwealth. Gifted students are categorized as exceptional children and by law must receive specialized education, time to meet their unique needs and develop these talents. Gifted students come in all shapes and sizes. There are many ways they can be identified. It can be general intellect. It can be through subjects, language arts, social studies, math, science, but it can also be through creativity, leadership, and the visual and performing arts. So there's not a one-size-fits-all for gifted education. It's a variety of ways that identification comes in. We have gifted students in all 120 counties, all school districts, and they're representative of all demographics across our Commonwealth: race, socioeconomic, status, gender, and ethnicity. Why does it matter? Why do I state that to build economic development in Kentucky, to build a more prosperous Kentucky, we should invest in gifted education? It's because our gifted children are a natural resource that we must invest in now for tomorrow's leaders and inventors, scientists, researchers. Strong, rigorous programming in our schools in science and math make sure that we have the next generation of doctors, researchers, engineers. Strong, gifted education for students identified in creativity ensures we're going to have the entrepreneurs we need to build new businesses in our state, or to come in and be able to manage and run businesses that are coming to our state. Gifted education intellectually challenges students who will fill the highly technical jobs that are being created every day. Battery plants in many of our own backyards need a highly skilled problem-solving workforce, and gifted education does that when these students are challenged. How can we make gifted education work better across the Commonwealth? By investing in it, but not just investing in gifted education, period. Investing in the gifted education educators, the ones who pour into those students, the ones that come alongside the student and their family and I help them identify those talents and develop those talents. If you ask any student, or if you ask yourself even, what made the difference when you were in school, it's typically a name. It's a teacher's name, or names. It's Mrs. Adams or Mr. Perkins or Mr. Stivers. You can conjure up that name and what that person did for you. So the investment is in our educators to come alongside these students. Students are the answer, and educators with them is the solution. And speaking of students, I have some students that are here today that traveled here from their hometowns because they believe that gifted education has made the difference for them. I'd like to recognize them briefly and let them stand. Madison Pigeon, she's a 7th grader at Ballyshannon Middle School, which is in Boone County. Her parents are Tammy and Pat Pigeon. Kate Hastings, she's an 8th grader at Morton Middle School in Lexington. Her parents are Jessica and Todd Hastings. Anastasia Hall, a 9th grader at Boone County High School. And her sister, Willow Hall, who is a 4th grader at Ackerman Elementary School. And their mother, Mary Cochran, brought them here today. Thank you, students, for being here and seeing government in action and seeing that the issues you care about are discussed with people in Frankfort. I'm going to turn the program over right now to my friend and fellow board member for CAGE, Dr. Austin Carver, so he can share his story with you. Thanks.
Thank you for y'all's time today. So I'm a Kentucky-born native, born and raised. I have deep-rooted appreciation for what this state has to offer, especially when it comes to our educational system. I've had the privilege of going through Kentucky public schools, and it's been an experience that I do hold dear. What really made a difference for me was the gifted and talented programs that I was fortunate enough to be a part of. I can clearly remember a time when I was sitting in a math class at LaRue County Middle School, and I found myself fascinated with the subject. But the regular curriculum started to bore me, and I had a teacher step in and recognize the thirst I had for knowledge. She didn't just teach me what was in a textbook, but she provided a way for math to have content that was beyond my grade level, and it sparked and ignited a lifelong passion for math. This personalized approach showed me the power of reaching and stretching our minds, and that happened all because of an opportunity that I found at a Kentucky public school. But the benefits of these programs didn't stop there. I moved around Kentucky as a kid, and I found myself at Union County High School in their gifted and talented program. And it led me to one of my favorite teachers and best classes, Mr. Daniel Bean, teaching a physics class. It was one of the first times that county had offered a physics class in years. And we found that physics is just applied mathematics. And for me, it was that perfect blend of structured concepts and creative problem solving. All of this was possible because of the foresight that the school had to provide these opportunities to a group of academically hungry students. The Governor's Scholar Program was pivotal in my high school experience. It showed me the full depth and breadth of opportunities within Kentucky for me personally to grow and develop within Kentucky as well. My educational journey continued at U of L. I got a bachelor's and a master's in physics and a PhD in electrical engineering. I've taken these skills and forged a career to help create a data-centered role at a billion-dollar connector company. And now I'm here as a proud member of the CAGE board, and I'm excited to bring my analytical insights and experience to the table to help them see the full value of gifted education in Kentucky. So I'm a true blue Kentuckian. I was born and raised here, and there's nothing more that I want than to see Kentucky to continue to grow and thrive. I'm especially proud to have my kids in Oldham County Public Schools. Our state has a very unique blend of talents and cultures and opportunities, and I believe that by nurturing and supporting our students through programs like Gifted and Talented, that we can unlock incredible potential and continue to make Kentucky an ever better place to live and learn. Thank you.
Thank you, Austin, for sharing. I'm going to ask Dr. Roberts to share with the committee now.
Well, I'm not a student here being represented, but I'm pinch hitting for a gifted resource teacher who could not be here. And I want to tell you the story of Skylar, who is in Whitley County and one of Ruth Osborne's students with whom she has worked to provide opportunities that he so needed. Ms. Osborne has been offering Skylar enrichment experiences since he was in the first grade, and now he's an 8th grade student. Skylar is the only child in a one-parent family, a family with very limited income. Skylar's interest in science has been supported by learning experiences supplemented by his gifted resource teacher. His aspiration is to attend MIT. Probably at 8th grade, I didn't know there was MIT, but that's what he would hope to be able to do. But when he talks about going to MIT, he talks about coming back and living in Kentucky because this is the place where he's grown up and where family is. He is very openly appreciative of opportunities for advanced learning. He thanks people who provide these opportunities for him to learn something that he is so interested in. I had the occasion to get to know Skylar this summer when he came to a camp at WKU, a camp that I direct. And so I had the opportunity to be with him on and off for 5 weeks this particular summer. But it was his gifted resource teacher, Mrs. Osborne, who made the connections for him to receive the financial assistance that was necessary for him to be part of that program. So gifted resource teachers provide learning experiences, and they connect students with learning experiences that go beyond what they could have in most regular classrooms, and experiences that they need to keep them interested in learning at high levels. Funding for gifted education provides educators who support Skylar and other young people from across the Commonwealth of Kentucky, those who are ready for more advanced learning opportunities than most schools offer. Funding gifted education is very important for Skylar and for other young people in Whitley County, as well as for gifted students across the Commonwealth. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Roberts. It's students like Skylar, students like the young ladies that are here in the room today. These stories of these students, they'll shape our future, and our investment as a state in their gifted education is critical. We are here because we believe in them, and we believe in the mission of making a strong gifted education program. We've got so many companies that are investing in our state, battery companies, Ford Motor Company, Ascend Elements, Toyota, Corvette. We have a strong business economy right now, and we are not preparing our students in the gifted arena to be able to step into the many challenging jobs that exist, and the jobs we don't even know will exist in the future. The type of work they're doing is rigorous. It requires broad ranges of problem-solving skills, skills that are taught in advanced coursework, STEM classes, coding classes. And the way we do that is funding to make sure we have the educators in place to nurture them and challenge them. I thank you for your time. I thank you for your vision, that you have a vision that is bigger and grander for Kentucky. And we know that with partnering with gifted education and making it as strong and robust and rigorous and challenging for these students, the stories shared with you today and all the children that will come through will make for a brighter, more prosperous Kentucky. Thank you for your time today. We can entertain questions at this point.
Thank you so much for your presentation. Again, I want to thank those students who are here with us today. We appreciate you being here with us as we discuss these issues. We do have three members who have questions, and I'm going to cut it off at that point because we do have a full agenda today. First, Representative Timoney.
Thank you, Chairman. First, Cage is a great group. I knew about you all long before I came to Frankfurt. So the work that you did with the structures and the processes with your program is amazing. The supports that you provide parents in particular is outstanding. To the students who are here, thank you all for being here today. I'm putting people on the spot today, so please stay in Kentucky after you graduate from college, please. And Austin, I'm gonna put you on the spot now too. So your degree is in physics, correct?
I have a master's in physics and a PhD in electrical engineering.
So did you ever think about being a teacher?
So I'm looking to take an adjunct position at IUS soon. So
Okay.
yes.
When you were working on your undergrad and even your master's, other people in your physics coursework, did they ever talk about becoming teachers? And what were some things that they were saying about not wanting to become a teacher?
So the physics was seen as a path for science education. Get a bachelor's in physics and then switch over to an education role and get a master's there. So that was consideration for quite a few folks in my group at U of L. I think some of them eventually did become like middle school and high school educators.
Excellent. And Mr. Chairman, one last thing. You just mentioned a second ago that you're going to be an adjunct. If there was a certification that you could teach a section or two of high school physics, would that be something that you'd be interested in doing? Not you in particular, but people in your line of work. Do you think that would be something that would be interesting for them, creating a different pathway to teaching one or two sections?
Absolutely. I think a lot of people that have hard science degrees really understand the value in investing in children and in education. So I think a lot of people would take an opportunity to pursue that.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Next, we have Senator Titchener, and could you please limit to one question, please?
One question. Okay.
We are on time constraint.
Mr. Carver, I'm so glad your kids are in Oldham County Public Schools. I just want to say that. So a question I have, as far as the grant funding, it's a significant increase on the numbers that I'm seeing as far as what funding is available. There's several in here that represent Jefferson County. 2021 to 22 is $146,000 in grant funding. It jumped up to $952,000. How did that significant jump happen in grant funding that's available to this gifted talented program?
Well, I think most of you will know that funding for gifted education remains steady, flat for 3 decades. And we thank you in the last budget session for boosting that up to $10 million. But at that time, up until that time, there was a limit on what any district would get, and that was about $60,000. So when the funding formula changed to look at number of students, that's when Jefferson County got the biggest boost across the state. And all of you have in your packets information about how much funding for gifted education is available in districts you represent.
Senator Fromeyer.
Thank you so much for being here. And in the funding and kind of continuation of Senator Titchener's question, is the funding the total students within the district, or are those total students identified as gifted? And tying to that as well, I'm also a freshman senator, so forgive my ignorance on the way these things converge. But I've also heard you mention the Governor's School. Is that Governor's School for the Arts, Governor's School for Entrepreneurship? How does that connect with CAGE? How do those work together?
The governor's schools are separate funding. We certainly at CAGE support opportunities for our students, but none of that funding, it goes to the schools for gifted education.
And the students that have been allocation of the dollars, how are those dollars then allocated? You said by students, but students identified as gifted or total students in the public school districts?
I believe it's looking at total numbers in the district.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much for your presentation.
Thank
We
you.
certainly appreciate all the work you do to support our gifted and talented students. Next item on our agenda is the introduction of our new interim commissioner. She's going to be joining us by Zoom today. And while she is making her introduction, could I ask the next presenters for virtual academies to go ahead and come forward and get seated and get prepared so we're ready to move right in. Commissioner Kenny, welcome. You're no stranger to us. You've been at KDE for a while, so the floor, I will ask you to please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, please go ahead, Commissioner Kenny.
Thank you so much, Chair Tipton and Chair West. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. I'll keep my remarks fairly brief. I have had the pleasure of appearing before many of you in past testimony in front of the General Assembly. I was named the Interim Commissioner of Education on September 30th by the Kentucky Board of Education. And my role as the interim is really to keep KDE and the board initiatives moving forward as we search for the next permanent commissioner of education. Most recently, I've probably worked with some of you and many of your school districts in my capacity as the KDE Associate Commissioner of the Office of Finance and Operations. So could have worked with many of you on whether we're talking about budgets, we're talking about school buses, we're talking about buildings, or we're talking about breakfast. That was also under my purview. So lots of operational and finance issues, working with your local school districts, your superintendents, finance officers, DPPs, all the people that really support your local school districts. It is our intention, of course, to keep the General Assembly informed as we start our search for the new permanent commissioner. And so I am working toward working myself out of a job as the interim commissioner for KDE. The last time we went through this process where we hired a national search firm and actually had our next commissioner sitting in the permanent commissioner chair, it took us about 8 months to do so. That was during the COVID pandemic. So we're trying to be very optimistic that we can do that a little quicker. But of course, we want to trust the process and conduct it with fidelity and integrity and find the very best candidate for the permanent commissioner seat. As you can tell, I am not an educator by training and background, but there are lots of very high quality educators in Kentucky that we support, we listen to, and we learn from. Some of those at the table today that will be presenting on behalf of the department in various capacities that are on your agenda. I look forward to working with each of you in my interim capacity. And if I could leave you with one short message, if you please will know that we are available to assist you as you head into the next General Assembly session, whether it's important education legislation that you are considering or the biennial budget for P-12 education. We are available to assist, provide data, answer your questions, and respond timely so that you can make the best informed decisions on behalf of the children of the Commonwealth and our communities as a whole. So I'm happy to answer any questions. I know you have a very full agenda, and so I'll turn it back to the chair and for your pleasure today.
Thank you, Commissioner Kenny. We had the opportunity, along with Senator Wise, Senator Wise and I co-chaired the school funding task force back in 21, so we worked together a lot during that process. I do have one question. It's my understanding that the schools and school districts across the state received their Kentucky Summative Assessment results today internally to review and analyze. When will those results be made to the public?
Those results, we go through a 2-week quality control check with our districts, and we have public release scheduled for October 31st. So October 31st, that will be available to all in the general public.
Okay, thank you. We have a question from Senator Thomas.
Ms. McKinney, it's good to see you again. And let me say congratulations. I hope I mean that very sincerely in terms of your new position. I want to say this. I think the 8-month timetable sounds fair to me. By my calculations, that would mean the new permanent commissioner will come into place around the beginning of July at the start of the new school year. I think that's fair to give them a fresh start in terms of he or she doing what they need to do to move this state forward with regard to education. I suspect that education is going to be in the forefront of this upcoming legislative session. There's going to be a lot of discussion about a lot of key and important issues. And I just don't think it would be fair to bring the new commissioner in the middle of this legislative session. So the 8-month timetable sounds fair to me. Again, we want to be very thorough, be very deliberate in terms of how we hire this new commissioner. So I'm okay with an 8-month timetable to select the right person.
Thank you very much, Senator Thomas. Appreciate your comments. We have already started and are underway. We did release an RFP to hire a search firm to help us with this endeavor, and we're in the scoring process of that RFP right now. So it could be a little earlier. The earlier we can bring people on board before that next school year starts, of course, would be very beneficial both to our new commissioner as well to our school districts for planning. So we'll continue to move this process along diligently, but in a thorough fashion.
We have 2 more members who have asked to ask questions today, and I'm going to cut it off. I apologize. I will make this comment. Anytime y'all have a question about KDE or what's going on, feel free to reach out to our education staff, myself, Co-Chair West, and we'll be sure and help get you connected with the right party at KDE that you need to speak with. Next, we have Representative Rollins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Would you comment on accountability measures and the laws that the legislature has passed and how you will carry that through? And would you please comment on your focus on academics rather than cultural and distracting issues other than straight academics?
Thank you very much for your question. As far as the recent legislation that's been passed by the General Assembly, I have a great deal of respect for the role of the General Assembly in creating the law. My background, I am an attorney. I'm licensed in both Kentucky and Florida. And so I understand the separation of duties and the laws that have been passed by the General Assembly. So we'll move forward to implement the laws as passed by the General Assembly. While also trying to uphold the requirements of the federal law that is required for us around academics as well. So we're trying to do that balance between both the federal and the state laws. And I think we have a really good path forward to do so. As far as the academics versus social issues, we are there to support each and every student. And we will focus on academics. However, we believe in the whole child and supporting the whole child. So if we have issues to support that child or children as it relates to physical, mental, emotional, or social health, we want to be there to support that as well. So I think we'll have a good balance in both of those in looking out for preparing our students to be in the very best possible shape in order to receive that instruction and to excel.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
Last questions from Senator Wise.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner, congratulations on your position. I know we've worked in the past on a lot of educational policy issues. I guess this is a truth or fiction question. The previous commissioner, was there a policy in place that KDE staff was only in the office working 2 days a week, physically in the office?
So, along with the rest of the executive branch, agencies were given the flexibility to telecommute. And so there is a requirement that at a minimum that staff be in the office meaning their primary workstation being the Sauer building, for example, is the primary workstation for many of our employees. So a minimum of that. The other 3 days that you could be telecommuting. However, we have employees that do all kinds of variations of that. I myself, I will share with you, I support telecommuting. I think that's good for our employees. It allows us to recruit and retain staff. However, for me, telecommuting wasn't for me. I flunked telecommuting when we tried it. So I actually am in the office 5 days a week at the Sauer building. And so we have a mixture of those opportunities for our staff when they're in and when they're out. No matter where our employees are, there is an expectation that they are being responsive, that they are answering questions of constituents, school districts, and continuing that service. So it really shouldn't matter if they're at another alternate site telecommuting or in the Sauer building. We expect that high quality service for all of our customers.
So by that, I take it that there's probably not any changes that may be made by you as commissioner or anything else right now of going back to a 5-day in-office workday.
I really don't see the role of myself in an interim capacity to make those bigger policy questions. I'll leave that for the next commissioner to investigate and see if he or she believes that that should change in any manner.
Thank you, Robin.
Thank you, Senator.
Commissioner Kenny, I appreciate you joining us on your vacation. I know that when you planned your vacation, you told me you weren't planning to be in this role. So we appreciate you taking some time and being with us today. And trust me, we will have more questions in the future. But thank you. Enjoy your time away. Next on our agenda is a discussion about virtual academies. I had some members reach out to me earlier in the interim and ask some questions about this subject. Done a little investigation, discussions with KDE, and thought it might be good just to have a conversation about this. So I believe we've got part of our presenters here, so please go ahead and identify yourself for the record, and then I will swear you in.
Good morning. Mickey Ray, Chief Academic Officer in the Office of Teaching and Learning at the KDE.
Good morning. Marty Park. I'm our Chief Digital Officer at the Kentucky Department of Education in our Office of Education Technology.
Matt Ross. I'm newly detailed Associate Commissioner of Education for the Office of Finance and Operations, so I'm trying to fill Robin's shoes.
Okay, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm a testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, thank you so much, and please proceed.
Well, good morning, Chair Tipton, Chair West, and members of the committee. We are thankful for the invitation to speak today to the virtual learning regulation. Like Representative Timoney shared earlier, we truly believe that all students deserve access to high quality instruction. And so certainly our interim commissioner, the three of us at this table, and the larger Department of Education are working to ensure that students do have access to that high quality instruction, high quality resources, and are able to have post-secondary readiness throughout their high school experience and beyond. We're going to begin today by having Dr. Park talk a little bit about the history around virtual learning within our state and just an added context before we jump into the regulation specifically.
Again, thank you for your energy into this topic. It's one that has served Kentucky well for the better part of 2 decades. We've recognized full-time enrollment in online, virtual, and remote programs for quite some time, most of which has been detailed for grades 5 through 12, again, for the better part of 2 decades now. So, virtual option became necessary and expanded through the pandemic. A lot of times our programs and our school districts designed around an emergency strategy of online, virtual, and remote learning. What we're talking about today is very much not emergency-based designs. It's very much around intentional designs for high-quality teaching and learning. And you will probably hear the terms high quality teaching and learning a lot during this conversation, because that's where we're focused right now. We had a desire by our school district leaders, boards, and superintendents to continue on for students who thrived in an online, virtual, and remote experience. What we know right now, through the end of last school year, it is a very small percentage of students and families who need this design and who have requested this design. Right now, around 1.8% of our total enrollment. But it's a very important group of students that we're designing for across the state. And so that becomes extremely important to us as we move forward. I wanted to give you a historical perspective. In Kentucky, in terms of education, we have pioneered and been a national leader in many areas. We were one of the very first states to launch a Kentucky virtual school as a statewide legislatively supported initiative. In the year 2000, we launched the Kentucky Virtual High School. It was successful for a period of time, and all the way through the closing of that school, that statewide sponsored school, it was deemed successful. From 2000 through 2012, we had around 700 students participate annually. The vast majority of those students were supplemental course pickups. So these were courses that maybe students in a school district could not enroll into because teachers were not available for that high-level course. Generally speaking, the Kentucky Virtual High School served students who needed course acceleration, course accumulation of some sort. And so 98%, approximately about 98% of our students who were enrolled in that high school, that Kentucky Virtual High School program were supplemental course pickups. Through that window, through 2012, we had an extreme burst in digital readiness, is what we refer to it as. Digital learning grew. We were at that time and still continue to be the pioneer and national leader in providing internet access to our schools. We were one of the very first state across the country to make sure that all of our schools had internet access through legislative support and our KETS program. And our teachers and leaders started to realize the advantages and opportunities of digital learning resources at that time. So that window was very important to us. And in 2012, the Kentucky Department of Education made a very strategic decision to transition from being a delivery model to then supporting our school districts and local design for online, virtual, and remote enrollment. Again, at that time, the majority of course pickup and enrollment was supplemental. It was not full-time enrollment. Which is what we still see today. So from 2013 through the next portion, the next window, we saw around 158. The majority of our school districts offer supplemental course pickups. And so they had really strategic partnerships designed with institutions of higher ed. Dual credit started to pick up through that window. And other partnerships developed to offer courses to students when and where needed, when teachers were not available for specific courses. So again, course acceleration, course accumulation. And during that window, we also saw our very first districts offer what we refer to as expanded enrollment. Now, I think we can refer to it as non-resident student enrollment. But that was done through an opportunity of agreements between districts. And that was an important part of that design. So 2021 through 22, again, as I mentioned, we saw an emergency status of needing to design a more sustainable approach, and we did that through a waiver process through the agency. School district leaders were part of that work, and we structured around what we are looking at as our next phase or our next window, and what we're targeting is high quality teaching and learning. And so we launched an administrative regulation that is new for this school year that we will detail here in a few minutes, that I think you'll find, and I do not hesitate to make sure to emphasize that if you compare our language around online, virtual, and remote learning, especially from a full-time enrollment perspective, is the strongest language that you'll find in the country. It is extremely strong around high quality teaching and learning, and we're very excited about that for our next steps. So just a couple points I want to emphasize. I've already emphasized and will continue to emphasize that while strategies remain consistent between designs for online, virtual, and remote courses and learning, there is a difference in design from supplemental or part-time, if you want to think about it that way, versus full-time enrollment. And that's an important distinction for us. We now have, with our new administrative regulation, a pupil attendance or seat time design option for school districts. Again, superintendents were very clear that that was an important design element for them. And then we've had, again, for the better part of 2 decades, a virtual performance-based option. Those two design elements are a bit different, but they're important for our districts and our school leaders to consider as they're developing or expanding or refining their programs. Based on our current structures, our districts, and I wanted to share this just to get a really good snapshot of where we are across the landscape in our public schools. We have districts who have in-district enrollment only options. So they've designed for their district kids, their resident kids, and they're not accepting right now into their programs students from other districts. Again, traditionally that had been done through reciprocal agreements between districts. And right now we have districts who are designing for in-district enrollment as the focus. That can be done through virtual performance-based. That can be done through our new administrative regulation for seat time, which also pulls in the opportunity for K through 4 students, which is an important distinction as well. And can be done through what we now are referring to as an A8 program, which is squarely focused on a full-time enrollment opportunity. Another option that we see districts working on right now is an expanded enrollment option. Again, that is accepting students through non-resident students into their program. And then finally, it's in concept phase right now, and I think it's interesting and exciting. We have multi-district programs starting to be thought through where districts can pull together and essentially share teachers in a way to have a program. We're having a couple of different education cooperatives think through this option as well, which becomes pretty interesting when you think about high quality teaching and learning in an online, virtual, and remote way that leverages efficiencies and finding the right teachers and keeping the right teachers, which we've talked about already today. I just wanted to share, I'm not going to go into detail here. I wanted to share just the perspective that every conversation that we have at the Department of Education that touches on online, virtual, and remote learning, learning is at the focus. It is at the center point, and it is a cross-agency conversation. It is a collaborative conversation. Every office is involved in this work. It is not a pull-out separate component. We do not believe that works. And so we've strategically designed every conversation around online, virtual, and remote learning to collaboratively work cross-agency with every office. And it's really important. Shoulder work and collaboration, whether that's digital or non-digital work, but certainly learner voice, choice, pace, and space becomes part of that design work that you'll see as we continue to move forward. And I wanted to give you a snapshot. This work is important to us, and we've been working on it for quite some time. And it's important to look at what other states are doing. And I wanted to give you a snapshot, just comparatively, states that are near us or around us. Our structures right now are very strong, and it's important to continue down that path, I believe. In Kentucky, we do not have a state-sponsored virtual school. We state that very clearly. However, we do support our districts who are sponsoring programs that are working for them. And when they've designed around high-quality teaching and learning, it is working, and it is functioning at high levels. Again, very small percentage of our enrolled students, but for that very small percentage, extremely important. I do have shaded in gray that it is an option to have multi-district, fully online schools. We currently do not have any yet that are fully functioning. Again, concept phase there. We do not have online learning requirements for graduation. Some states do. None of the states that I've highlighted do, but there are a few states across the country that do. Districts can offer full-time online enrollment. That is clear for us, and we have a couple of different design paths that are helpful. And we do not have state approval process for online providers, and we do not have a state approval process for online courses. And I want to emphasize that because the language around our administrative regulation that we'll detail here in just a second, you'll see that we do not need that approval process because the language itself is strong, and our school districts are rising to that bar and implementing high quality experiences for students through that mechanism.
Could I interrupt you there just on that subject? My question goes to standards in the curriculum. So that is totally left up to the local school districts to make sure in their virtual programs that they meet the Kentucky standards, and the curriculum that is used in there meets statutory requirements in the Kentucky standards.
That is correct.
Okay, just want to be clear on that.
And before we move on, and I'm glad you asked that question because I think you're going to see that highlighted pretty clearly, and it's extremely important. I wanted to mention that the overwhelming majority of our enrolled students in our full-time online and virtual programs across the state, they're high school students. They're 9 through 12. The majority of those high school students are 11th and 12th graders, and there's a lot of reasons for that. There are also, I wanted to point out that there is a downward trend nationally in K through 5 students enrolling in an online virtual full-time enrolled program. We're seeing the same exact things in Kentucky. That is a downward trend. 98+% of our students and our families desire to be in person. That's an experience that I think we'll see continue to be realized in Kentucky as well. We do have districts who are recapturing homeschool students into their online and virtual program for enrollment. It's an interesting scenario when our school districts have a design element where the options that they have is either to launch a program internally, to partner with another district, to tell a family that for all the right reasons, for the right fit for that student, that they need to sign out for homeschool because that's not an option in that district. Or to engage with a private school. And so we believe in what we're doing in public education, very much so, and we believe that we can continue this design that you've supported throughout.
Thanks, Marty. I'll try to walk you through the regulation. Like Marty said, the promulgation of this regulation was a cross-agency effort. It touched every office. And I think you'll see as a theme that we tried to keep the requirements of the regulation so that it treated kids basically like as similar or the same as kids that were in person. So our section 1 has definitions and sort of, I pulled out the full-time enrolled online virtual remote learning program. I won't read it to you, but it lays out what we're defining as this sort of program where kids are K through 12 students are enrolled on a full-time basis. They're not in the same location as their teachers, and they're synchronous and asynchronous learning opportunities. And also, it's not an alternative education program. I think that's important. Again, the virtual program requirements are found in Section 2. Again, the same, like treat these kids the same as in-person kids. So they're to receive the same sort of supports, and to the instruction is supposed to be aligned to state academic and curricular requirements. A district is required to annually review their virtual policy, to adopt a policy, have a board policy, and then to review that annually. Also, a student that's participating in this must have digital access and must be supported in that digital access. And then their assessments, they're held to the same assessments as a kid that is in person. And also these kids are to be given access to extracurricular activities where it's possible, realizing that sometimes it's not possible, but again, districts can allow these kids to participate where they can, or even provide sort of extra opportunities for remote kids to have some participation extracurricular. Section 3 talks about the placement of students. I think the most important thing is placement is always voluntary. This is not to be a warehouse for bad kids because you don't want to deal with them, but this is a voluntary program for families and students that need or thrive in this sort of environment. Students with disabilities, the ARC makes the placement. So if a family with a child that has an IEP wants to be in there, then the ARC still needs to make the placement, just as like an in-person kid. Same with Section 504 kids. And then the district is required to provide services just as it would for an in-person child. Section 4 through 7, I've just sort of summarized sort of the requirements on a virtual program. They use the same UNIS and chart of accounts. They enter student data in Infinite Campus, just like a in-person school. Teachers are required to be Kentucky certified, and class sizes are required to comply with the statutes and regulations. So same class sizes as for physical schools. Student attendance. So attendance is for elementary school kids, is taken twice a day. SEEK is calculated based on whole day and half day SEEK funding. So in order to make this seat time, this attendance calculation, we came up with it for elementary schools, you would take attendance twice a day. So with a 3-hour window between to sort of capture that whole day, half day sort of concept. For high school and middle school students, that attendance is taken each class. And then, of course, compulsory education laws still are applicable, and districts are expected to enforce those just as they would for an in-person student.
Section 9 and Section 2 both deal with the curriculum and content and instruction, but here it is explicitly stated that the content of the learning that happens within that virtual academy is aligned to the Kentucky academic standards in 704 KR Chapter 8. We also expect that that learning is aligned to the educational goals established in KRS 158.6451. That would also include the selection and use of high quality instructional resources. So Representative Tipton, if I may speak to your question just a little bit, while we don't have a set list of approved providers, we do have many resources that we've created on kystandards.org that will help local leaders to determine if the instruction is in fact aligned. We have instructional alignment rubrics. We have consumer guides currently that are existing for reading and writing and mathematics. We are completing a science consumer guide as we speak. And so all of those resources can help local leaders to determine the quality of that teaching and learning and if the resources are in fact high quality based on the definition that is provided both in statute and regulation and at the Kentucky Department of Education. Another key piece of Section 9, students are required to have access to their individualized learning plans so that they can have a pathway and begin thinking about their career choices and college path as they move forward, beginning in 6th grade and beyond. So anyone operating, again, a virtual academy would have to have that component in place, as well as MTSS. So they have to have considerations for those students who maybe need additional supports beyond Tier 1, so that there is Tier 2 intervention supports, Tier 3 interventions. There's progress monitoring that's required. And so there also have to be procedures in place if a student is not excelling, how they can transition in and out of that virtual situation. I did also want to point out this section of the regulation speaks to interaction with a teacher and with other students. We wanted to ensure that there would be engagement for that student, that the skills that they have and that they would have access to in person are also ensured in that virtual academy. And you can see there, the second to last bullet, they must use a learning management system that is capable of monitoring student progress. And so that would go beyond just a quarterly report that would be sent to parents and families, but that based on the learning that's happening day to day, that the teachers and leaders are aware of where their students are and what additional supports may be needed. And then lastly, the schedule shall align with standard instructional day and hour requirements as well.
So as our school districts are listening to their students and listening to their parents and understanding a design element around a learner best fit, and we know that a number of students thrive in this environment, and when an in-person experience for a multitude of reasons was not working for them as well. Our school districts have also designed around onboarding not just into the online virtual remote program, but then back into an in-person experience when that time is right as well. And that becomes, from a continuation of learning perspective, that becomes just vital. So from a design perspective, listening to students and listening to parents, our school districts are very clear why they're designing specific programs for this group of students, and that becomes, from a personalization perspective, that becomes key. I wanted to close with just the point that a lot of our resources and programs are wrapped around what we refer to as our digital learning guidelines. These are principles that our superintendents assure to, that we coach as much as possible, and we push into a lot of learning programs when engaged in digital learning and resources, and reviewing, aligning, and endorsing by Kentucky certified teachers. That's vital. It's key. Stewarding learning, so progress, understanding when students are progressing and when they're not, and then providing the right resources to get back to progress. Principle number 3 is ensuring access and supports. That is an extreme design element and conversation that our districts know and can speak to very clearly, that it's not free or cheap. The cost of these designs becomes important when you do them right. Our districts speak to that very clearly. And then personalizing an experience. A lot of design elements right now that, regardless of the program, it's vital to understand how to personalize, and then definitely applying our effective teaching practices is important when engaging in digital learning experiences across the board. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak on behalf of our full-time enrolled online virtual and remote learning programs, and welcome any questions.
Thank you for your presentation. I'm going to make an announcement right now. I can already see we are not going to get to item 7 on the agenda on the House Bill 319 update. So if you're here for that presentation, I just want to let you know you can go to lunch if you want to. I do have a couple questions. You mentioned there were 115 districts. Do you have a breakdown of the number of districts who design their own program in-house, their teachers are employed to school districts, versus the districts who hire a third-party entity on a contract basis?
So that's an awesome question, and one that we know the maturity of our online virtual programs. We are working through program level data. For example, this is the first year that we have a very specific school designation or program designation. So A8 is brand new for our school district. So we will be working through understanding and getting all of our programs tied to that. Number one, course level data and information is work that we're engaged in right now as well. That will be progress moving forward, and then student level data to better understand that. So to answer your question specifically, I do think it's important for us to continue to track that, and from a maturity perspective, most of our school districts across the state of Kentucky, whether it's in-person learning or online and virtual learning, engage in partnerships with external parties. I think what you're referring to is what we would call, and nationally is referred to, a managed school approach. Mm-hmm. Currently today, we only have one school district who's engaged in a managed school approach, which we'll be sharing here in a bit.
All right. What about dual credit CTE opportunities in the virtual world?
Yeah, they're awesome.
Okay,
I think our
good.
students can speak very clearly that when a district has the opportunity to engage in more dual credit opportunities, a lot of that can be leveraged through an online virtual and remote, generally supplemental strategy by the district.
Okay. We do have another set of presenters on this, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to call on our members. If you want to ask your question now, great. If you want to pass, that's fine too, till we have the complete presentation. But first, we have Representative Bojanowski.
All right, thank you. So at this point, we don't have a state virtual sponsored program, but with HB 563, effectively any virtual school could become statewide, correct? How does that impact SEEK money? So if a student's in Jefferson County, which has a relatively low SEEK base, and they go to Cloverport Independent, which has a relatively high SEEK base, does that student just automatically count as the higher SEEK base, and how could that impact our budget?
So that student becomes a student of the district where they're located. So they would receive the Cloverport SEEK amount in the following year, right? So SEEK is always trailing. So the next year, the Cloverport would receive that funding amount for that student. So that would have it would have a cost to SEEK, right? So for whatever that difference is.
Senator West.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be brief. What percentage of our students are currently virtual?
From a full-time enrollment status at the end of last school year, it was about 1.8%.
And in the next 5 years, where do we expect that to be?
We've projected that up to 3%, potentially in the next 5 years. But with the current trend from a grade level perspective, I think that'll have an impact.
Thank you.
Next is Representative Timoney.
Thank you, Chairman. Couple things. Outstanding research from homeschool. I know the district I work closely with has every time that they get a parent that calls in and says, hey, we're thinking about homeschool. Hey, here's our Fayette County Public School virtual option. Is this something you'd be interested in? 9 times out of 10, they take it. So that is awesome. That's what it's supposed to be like. And I think that's how we can work really well with our homeschool programs. After school activities, I think we're going to have to talk about that because obviously the Kentucky High School Athletic Association says your resident school, which would be Cloverport, but if you lived in Lexington, that's a long commute to practice every day. So we'll have to definitely kind of talk about what that's going to look like. We do not have a statewide virtual academy, yet there is a Kentucky Virtual Academy. Is that just advantageous, just being the first at the table and go ahead and label our program the Kentucky Virtual Academy, or?
So our school districts who launch online virtual and remote programs that are full-time enrolled programs name them and brand them what they desire to. And one of our school districts has named their program the Kentucky Virtual Academy by Cloverport Independent. I think they'll speak to that.
Okay.
And so, yeah, that is definitely an opportunity that districts take advantage of.
And the last question I have, which Chairman, you asked about dual credit, AP offerings, also those things need to be kind of developed. I think the discussion about SEEK is rearing its head once again, and we're definitely going to have to talk about that. But special education services, I know that where the students reside is where the services should be coming from because those are technically paid for out of federal money. So it doesn't matter that, and I know Representative Bojanowski probably knows the funding for IDEA but a whole lot better than I do. But so those services, even though the students are enrolled and SEEK is going to another district, those services are still being covered by the home district.
So in our administrative regulation, we have a section speak to the students with disabilities services that are to be provided by the online virtual program as well.
Okay. But I thought the gentleman stated that it was where the residence provides the services.
I think in the regulation, it's required that the program provide those services too. So we can go back to our OSEAL, our Office of Special Education, and get a better response for you, I think.
Because the way I understand it is for example, in Fayette County, I know our Fayette County staff members provide services for some of the private schools and some of the home schools. I understand that that's how that goes. But that's, within a community-based funding, local tax base pays for the education, that type of thing. But if we're talking about 150 miles away, I think we're having a different conversation.
Sure. Let us take that one back because I don't want to answer wrong. But
Sure.
yeah, we can get you a good answer on that one.
Thank you.
Can I just briefly add, non-resident student designs are unfolding right now, and our programs are working through it, not just in this space, but in other spaces. An example that I would give there is one district shared that while they have a group of non-resident students who have left them to go to other districts, only 8% have left to go to a virtual program in another district. So the vast majority have gone to an in-person experience in another district. And so I think districts are working through that right now as well.
Well, thank you. And I, for the record, this is school choice I support fully. This is what we're supposed to be doing. This is how innovative education goes along, comes around. This is what we're supposed to be doing. I know it did not work for my two sons. My sons require a more boot to tail level instructional model than a virtual model. But I also have friends their children, during the pandemic, they started a dog walking service.
Yeah.
And they stayed virtual because the kids are making, $1,000 a month, and their education is at a very high level. So I definitely see this as, I'm a supporter of it. I just think where we are, we need some guardrails, because right now it's the Wild West. Thank you.
Representative Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Have there been any studies done to determine the primary reason that people would go virtual?
We actually have some great feedback from our programs. We have World Equestrian students who are competing all across the globe. We call them Globetrotters. That's one reason. There are definitely mental health reasons, physical health reasons that we've captured. I think all of our programs right now, and that's part of the maturity of this work across the Commonwealth. They are understanding where and why their students are coming to them, and that's an important part of the conversation. And so, from a research perspective, internationally and nationally, I think is important. But for our programs know why their students are coming to them, and that's something that we could report on that I think would be helpful.
And who's the primary decision maker in that? Parents?
Yeah.
So as Representative Timoney talked about, this is a form of school choice and provides them an opportunity to make that decision, what's best for their kid.
Absolutely. And that's a reason why we emphasized in the administrative regulation voluntary as opposed to involuntary.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Senator Givens.
Chairman Tipton, thank you, and thanks for the presentation. Good to see you again, and appreciate the leadership and the movement Kentucky has made in this virtual space is impressive, and we continue to see it evolve, and I'm excited about what the future holds. Specifically, my question is on, Mr. Park, a phrase that you used and is very important to me is high quality teaching and learning. And I know we don't have the entire regulation in front of us. You may have spoken to this somewhere, or you may already have the authority, and I simply don't know in statute where that authority resides. But under your Section 9 slide, specifically mentioning instruction aligned to Kentucky academic standards and grade level expectations, talk with me briefly about the process to review and ensure that alignment is happening. And then if you discover for some reason that in this virtual space it's not happening, what authority does KDE have to say, we're shutting you down, we're clawing it back, the funding you've been getting is no longer continuing, and we're going back into the last 2 years to get funding because you haven't been responding to our arguments. So speak briefly to KDE's ability to review and enforce this concept of high quality teaching and learning.
If you don't mind, Senator Givens, I'll take that. And then Marty, please feel free to add. I think that the first part of your question, so we have developed instructional tools that can be used by the local leaders to determine that alignment to the standard. So within our instructional alignment rubrics, they go section by section on certain gateways that are linked to the academic standards, even down to the most granular level of, in the CAS for reading and writing, for example, they would have to have adequate supports for those foundational skills that are required for students K-5, et cetera. In addition, in the consumer guide, not only have we defined high quality instructional resources at a higher level, but we have established a process that local districts can adopt to select and evaluate resources that we would deem as being of high quality. In many cases, we're pointing to externally validated resources, so things that have been vetted. Ed Reports, for example, uses Kentucky teachers. They have teachers who come in that analyze the characteristics of effectiveness in those gateways for various resources. And so we're pointing local leaders to utilize those tools in determining whether something is of high quality or not. I also wanted to mention, so all of the statutory requirements, just as an example, within Read to Succeed, within Senate Bill 9, and the shift that occurred in Senate Bill 156 of 2023, we know that within these virtual academies, now they will have to be thinking about the KDE approved valid and reliable comprehensive reading program. And so within that, all of those things that will still be applicable for local leaders as they're thinking through and building out these models. Now, in terms of the monitoring of that, all of that would fall under the purview of the local superintendent. So per KRS 160.345, it's the local superintendent who has the authority to select the instructional resources. And so for us, I think we can advise, we can recommend, we want to support and provide service to those districts that may have questions, but the ultimate authority would reside with the local superintendent.
Next, we have Representative Truitt.
Thank you, Chairman. I think Representative Timoney kind of looked at my notes because he hit a lot of things that I was going to kind of hit on, but mine's more of a statement as opposed to a question. We do need guardrails in these situations. In my daily life, a lot of the times that I get parents who are asking for homeschool or virtual instruction, a lot of times it's for negative reasons. It's for maybe running away from truancy, maybe some questions about sexual abuse, things like that. You think back to the pandemic, which I know is bad memories, but DCBS intakes and things like that went way down during those times. You know why? Because our teachers and our aides and our school employees weren't there to report some of these instances. So I encourage us as a legislature and as Department of Education and educators in general to have a way to set up to where let's try to set some guardrails up to where these bad actors are not getting what they want. I mean, if you've got a parent who wants to do this, because virtual instruction can be great. It really can be. But it could also be the worst thing a kid has to experience. So I encourage us to make sure that we kind of think about that when we're setting up these guardrails, because that's where my concern is. We don't want any kids to be mistreated at home and things that that would normally not fly in a public school, but at home, nobody's there to report. So, thank you.
Okay, we have 6 more members in the queue. I'm going to cut it off right there. Good questions, good comments. We've got to move forward. Next is Representative Rayburn.
Thank you, Chairman. It's kind of a 2-part question here. I apologize, but how do the assessments in the virtual academy kind of differ from those taken in the classroom? I know oftentimes those assessments sometimes are timed and have different criteria. So can you talk a little bit about how those assessments are different and how do we ensure that students are hitting those benchmarks?
Thank you for your question, and that's a great question. And if we look at our programs as designed, they are very similar and they're very important. An example that I would give is a district who believes in interval assessments to understand progress that students are making. One of our programs was just mentioned a little while ago, and they're finding, for example, their 6 through 8 students are performing from a progress perspective because they are the same interval assessments that our in-person students are engaged in and taking, that they're performing at or above those progress levels, which is how they're basing the development of their program, continuing to develop. And so from a state assessment perspective, our online, virtual, and remote full-time students are required to take those assessments in person. And so our programs work through that. For example, the Barron County Virtual Academy, which, by the way, is celebrating their 20th year of servicing full-time enrolled students across the state of Kentucky. Fantastic program that spoke to our Kentucky Board of Education just months ago on this topic as well. They have a very strategic design of where they go out regionally for the students that they serve for their assessments in that case. So, great question.
Very good. Chairman, one brief follow-up.
Proceed.
So, have we seen a change, in the assessment benchmark scores since 2019? A significant change. I know the number of students enrolled in the program has changed, so perhaps your numbers aren't going to be completely accurate, but is there anything to show that there's been any negative changes? I know there's a lot of positive here, and I think this is great for students to receive that high quality education, but we've seen a lot of other assessment scores that have dropped in the classroom.
Oh, yeah.
So are we seeing that also in virtual?
Sure. Yeah, certainly. And I think the way that what I would share is that our school district leaders and program leaders, they're watching this very closely. It matters to them, and they understand. For example, we've had some programs transition from offering K through 12 to now only offering 6 through 12 because their design that they implemented fit that better because of exactly your point. And so they are watching very closely.
Okay, thank you.
Senator Williams.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I have a short question and a short comment, too. It says Section 8 says classes shall not be performance-based. Mm-hmm. What do they mean by performance-based, and why can't they be performance-based?
Awesome question. So there are two different designs that our school districts build their programs on. One is performance-based. That's historically, for over a decade, been an opportunity for districts to design on. That is only allowed to be designed for grades 5 through 12. And it's also what I refer to as a post hoc funding mechanism. So districts only get funding for those performance-based students when they successfully complete those courses. That's a disincentive for some programs. And so in this administrative regulation, it introduces a second opportunity, which is more in line with seat time attendance, if you will, which is a funding mechanism that provides funding as soon as you start the high quality teaching and learning experience. It also introduces the opportunity for students K through 4. Again, that trend is dropping, but it does introduce that opportunity. So in this administrative regulation, it is an opportunity for K through 4, K through 12 students, but it's more in line with traditionally what we think about from a seat time attendance perspective. So our teachers in these programs, they have eyes on students. They're checking in course by course. They're working through instructional design. At the elementary level, it's twice per day. They're taking attendance just like you would in person.
Okay, but you're not measuring their performance and if I have a module where they complete it, one of these gifted and talent kids completes in 10 minutes, they got to sit there through the rest of the curriculum because they can read instead of listen.
So there are designs around that, and those are performance-based designs. It's just a different funding.
But they're not allowed for virtual.
They are. They are. If the course is set up as a performance-based course. It's just a different course setup design.
Okay, the other comment, I think, in discussions, you have an esports program, and for those of you who may not know about esports, the top 10 esports competitors of 19 to 20 years old have all earned more than $5 million. And this is a 19-year-old that has earned more than $5 million. That's an exception. I think the average ones are like $60,000 a year is what you can learn with esports. So do you promote esports? Is that something your students get involved in, and how much are they making?
So the Kentucky High School Athletic, great question. The Kentucky High School Athletic Association does sponsor and promote esports. And we actually, from the Department of Education, we do work with the KHSAA on those implementations. Yeah, and we do see more students participating this year than last year, and that trend is moving in that direction.
Yeah, I'm like, just quick comment. My son has an online tech support business, and he hires gamers who sit out in rural environments and pull tickets, and he finds they make excellent employees and support people for constituents. So it's an economic development issue as well.
Next, we have Senator Titchener.
Thank you. My question goes along with Representative Rayburn's question. The district data profile that we get from OEA, there's no distinction right now of any assessment for virtual students. Can we get that data added to that district profile report in the future?
I think that is something that is a future conversation. Again, the maturity of the programs. We do have programs that are designed in districts where the primary enrollment is at the high school, the traditional A1 high school, and the secondary enrollment is through the virtual program. And so those would be included in the high school. But I think your question is spot on. And that's something that we are continually working towards, is a better landscape from high quality data around this work, so that we can answer questions better and work towards progress in that.
I think it would be interesting too to see the ACT performance results from virtual students, especially since most are in that higher K-12 or high school. Thank you.
Our districts absolutely do that comparative work. So the students that are in their online and virtual programs, they absolutely look at that compared to the traditional A1 school, and they know where they are there. Absolutely.
Okay, next is Senator Thomas.
Dr. Park, my question is directed to you, although Mr. Ross and Ms. Ray, you're welcome to chime in. It seems to me that you can't talk about virtual education without talking about the infusion of artificial intelligence. I have repeatedly said everywhere I go and talk that, to me, the most important issue that lawmakers across this country have to deal with in 2024 is the issue of AI. I have a Part A and a Part B question for you, since we're talking about virtual instruction here. Part A is this. What is the use of AI from the teaching perspective from these students? Is the teaching primarily AI? Is there some AI being used? Because I just think it's important to have that human element.
Absolutely.
We're talking about teaching students. That's Part A. And then Part B is, how do you control for the use of AI by students virtually when it is virtual? There's no classroom presentation there. So if you could address those two questions for me, I would greatly appreciate that.
So you struck a chord that makes me really excited. It's an awesome question, and from the Kentucky Department of Ed perspective, in fact, in our KETS master plan, our digital learning plan, we speak very clearly to the safe and responsible uses of AI as we're moving forward, including keeping humans in the center of the AI development, the AI work. We believe in that. We definitely know that in education, in K-12 education, artificial intelligence, generative AI can aid teachers and create opportunities for teachers to be efficient and work harder, or work smarter, not harder, in very specific situations. That's important to understand, but we emphasize the safe and responsible uses of AI, extremely important as we move forward. There's a lot of policy conversations that need to continue to occur. I know we've had those actually with this body before, and I think that's important. We will continue to do that and continue to promote that with our public school districts. And so AI use by students was the second part of your question. Yeah, and it's important to understand that artificial intelligence in the applications, the programs, the development of interfaces that we all use every day, they're being integrated, sometimes without our knowledge. And learning when and where they are being integrated is important. Our students need to continue to understand that. Our in-person students are challenged at the same level as our online and virtual students. In terms of demonstrating learning, for example, artificial intelligence tools and applications will continue to be used just as they were 3-4 months ago in our schools. And it becomes important for us to continue to work with our students to understand when and where that's appropriate, when it's not. We have teachers that are promoting and prompting students to integrate AI work into their personal work, but keeping the student learning and demonstration first and foremost.
Next, we have Senator Carroll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all for the presentation. Just real quickly, and I apologize if I missed this, can you talk a little bit about the relationship between the virtual learning and homebound students in talking about the rules that that apply to homebound extracurricular activities, and does that create some inequities if a student chooses virtual learning and stays home as to one that, due to various health reasons, chooses to be homebound, or will homebound be obsolete at some point?
So that is a question, actually, just as of last week, in talking with a school district leader on that school districts are working through right now, the evolution of these opportunities. It is permissible and possible for our homebound students to be served through online and virtual and remote learning. That is definitely a possibility and permissible by school districts. I think that from my perspective, my opinion, and my coaching is that we need to consider the length of time. So what we don't want to do, what we want to keep first and foremost the continuation of learning as the primary target for students who are homebound, for example, or who cannot come in person for a period of time. If it's temporary, if it's 3 to 5 to 6 days, then the homebound, traditional, I would say, homebound services still come into play, and I think are important to continue to develop that track. When it's longer than that, when it becomes weeks, months, then a program such as a full-time enrolled online virtual remote program becomes a really important conversation. That student can feel more connected in that mechanism, and superintendents have spoken to that in the past very clearly as well, the desire. In fact, years ago, the first superintendent requested our Kentucky Board of Education to permit that. At that time, it was the first that a superintendent had suggested that, and that was widely accepted.
So I think I'd add to that pursuant to a statutory change a couple years ago, home and hospital instruction could be offered virtually. In order to get funding for a home and hospital student, you'll only have to provide 2 1-hour sessions per week. So I think the opportunity here is for some of these kids to get more instruction, be more integrated into a program than just that home hospital sort of set aside type of instruction.
And that's the conversation that our superintendents and leaders are having, is high quality. Where can we serve our students from a high quality teaching and learning perspective best? So best fit, I think, is what I would refer to it as.
Last question this segment comes from Representative Callaway.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for all of these details today. And I do want to emphasize a lot of what my colleagues have said, that I think this is a great opportunity. It does put back into the hands of parents some different learning environments for their kids. And so I think this is absolutely wonderful, and I appreciate the details. I do also share concerns about safety of the kids and the extracurricular activities. So appreciate going forward attention being given to that. As someone who has tried to balance virtual and in-classroom teaching, my attention has gone to the teachers. So what does it look like? Are teachers doing that balancing where they are in class, hands-on with students, and also have virtual students that are participating in the classroom discussions? Or is this a teacher that is specifically assigned to a virtual classroom? So if that's the case, then do we then see some type of competition? Are there teachers who are wanting to only take virtual classes? Are they more skilled, on a technical level? Are we compensating for, either travel to a classroom in person or technologically, advanced capabilities and requirements? So I just, from a teacher's standpoint, I was just wondering about if it does create any kind of competition and how you're kind of accounting for all that. And thank you all again.
Can I take first stab at that question? We definitely see across the state in the Commonwealth our programs that are offered by our public school districts where there's very good attention to work on not just the best fit for each student, but a best fit for teachers as well. And so there is an opportunity where teachers have stepped forward to say, I want to teach in this space and be dedicated to an online virtual remote program. We do not support the dual role scenario where a teacher has student. I mean, we worked through that from an emergency perspective through the pandemic, but that is not best practice, and we're pretty clear about, and our school leaders and superintendents and district leaders champion that as well. I mean, that's a really tough ask for teachers. So there is a competition perspective moving forward in the future, I believe. For example, if locally, geographically based, a school district cannot find a teacher for very specific high-level courses, maybe it's AP dual credit courses that they can find elsewhere in the state as a Kentucky certified teacher. I think we have strong examples of that. And so that does become a really interesting conversation and a good one to have.
Thank you. Now we'll transition. Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Ray. Go ahead, Nikki.
I just wanted to add, I think that the professional learning for the teachers who are participating in the virtual academies will also be equally as important to those who are receiving in-person supports for professional learning, because they do that. Because the mode is a bit different, we have to ensure that they have the supports around student engagement strategies and that they can utilize the high-quality instructional resource in the same capacity in an online setting as well as in person.
We actually, I did not mention, but we actually, with partnership with the Kentucky Education Television, who's been a long time online virtual and remote leader in the state of Kentucky, KET, developed an online virtual network of school district programs and teachers focused on professional learning for our teachers who are teaching in this space. And that has gone extremely well. Great feedback from our programs who are participating in that.
Thank you for being here in your presentation. Next, we'll transition to, we have some representatives from Cloverport Independent School District and the Kentucky Virtual Academy, and we'll hear firsthand how they have implemented this program in their school district. So if everyone will come to the table, when you get set, again, just a reminder, make sure your microphones and lights are turned on green. Pull close to you. And as soon as you're ready, please identify yourself for the record, and I will swear you in.
I am Keith Haynes. I am the superintendent of Cloverport Independent School District.
I am Tim Bobrowski, executive director of Kentucky Virtual Academy.
And I'm Sally Johnson, the principal of Kentucky Virtual Academy.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
I do.
I do.
Oh, please proceed.
First of all, thank you all very much for having us today. We're proud to be here presenting on behalf of Cloverport Independent School District and the Kentucky Virtual Academy. Just a a little brief introduction. If you're not familiar with the community of Cloverport, we are a small town in Breckenridge County. We sit on the Ohio River. Our school district recently celebrated its 150th anniversary, one of very few in the state that can say that. So we're very proud of that and have a long history of excellence in education. We after I would say last school year, the pandemic kind of forced our hand with virtual learning. We all had to kind of adapt and develop some kind of virtual learning program. And we had, like many smaller districts in particular, we had developed a model where we had sort of a prepackaged program of it had a course catalog and in fact the specific program we used was Edgenuity, and it is a very rigorous program, but it was essentially a setup where a student would be assigned to a course. It was sort of a self-paced thing. There was a teacher assigned to be within our district assigned to be kind of a support system for students working through that coursework. And we found that model really was not that effective for a lot of our students who needed virtual learning or wanted virtual learning. So last school year, we started looking for a different option, something more innovative, something rigorous, and something that was richer than what we were offering at the time. And so I landed on, after doing some research, on Stride K-12. And after some conversations with folks from their side, conversations with our Board of Education, we decided to join in partnership in developing and opening the Kentucky Virtual Academy, which is our district-wide virtual program. We worked with our board attorney, as you would with anything, as you're working through a contract of any kind. And we have been working hand in hand with KDE, who I will say, they probably see my name pop up in their inbox and cringe at this point because it is such a new setup, not just as a virtual academy, but the nature of our academy is different. So there's lots of questions that I ask them frequently, and they have been very supportive and very helpful, and I am deeply appreciative to them for that. I will turn it over to Dr. Bobrowski.
You move it there forward. All right, good deal. Thanks again, everyone, for letting us be here today to present. Just a brief rundown. I'm going to let you see kind of the student demographics of who's enrolled at the Kentucky Virtual Academy, so that you can kind of get a lay of the land of how many folks or what type of students we have coming into the system there. Of course, I'm a retired superintendent of 11 years. I look around, I see a lot of friendly faces, and I see a lot of folks that were here back when I was superintendent and started the non-traditional instructional day program, which we had to come here in front of everyone and get drilled on questions. So, and that was fine. It was great, but it was a wonderful opportunity to kind of be involved in the early process of being innovative in a small rural public school district. And it really made me feel good to know that what we wanted to do could be done, at least it started on a pilot level. And then, of course, you all know what happened when the COVID hit. We all had to go that route. But again, one of the things that we learned is that experience gave us a lot of momentum to continue learning with our students. Our kids in Alza County at that time, we never missed a beat. Our teachers never missed a beat because we were so used to it. So just a little background there. One thing that obviously the KVA, Kentucky VA school experience is working on, and again, I need to preface this. I've been in, tomorrow makes one day that I've been, or 1 month that I've been employed with Kentucky Virtual Academy. So I'm new. I'm very, very new to the system, but I love the idea and the concepts that are in front of you all today as we present. Of course, the main goal obviously is to be in compliance with state regulations and statutes and KDE for virtual education. And I think you can hear from especially Marty about the technology integration piece and how important it is for students today. Students today are a different, they are different than what we used to have 10, 12 years ago even. So the streams of media, the streams of technology are critically important. What I like about this program is it involves asynchronous plus synchronous learning model. It's a combined, which is then termed to be a blended model type approach for instructional delivery, which I believe the asynchronous piece there, I could talk for months about this and days upon the synchronous piece, but it's a blend. It's a natural blend where teachers that are certified to teach in Kentucky are teaching kids, right? So it's live instruction face to face, which is critically important. I'm a public school guy for 32 years, and I appreciate everything everyone has done around the table to secure our retirement. I will say that right off the bat while I got the floor, just briefly, if you don't mind. But it is very appreciated, all right? But this opportunity was something that I never got to do as a superintendent, and I love it because it has a statewide impact. Right now, it's a K-11 curriculum and instruction, which is aligned to the Kentucky standards and course codes, and you heard the folks from KDE talk about, superintendent's role and what that does. That superintendent's role and job is primarily there. And then, of course, the college and career readiness and the dual credit courses, that's something that next year, that's something that I want to see personally, because that's my own personal wheelhouse. I want to see that go and grow. I think that's important to everyone that's doing the work, as well as the students who are attending. So we need to keep our students centered within all decisions that we make, and that's what I feel confident about with this particular Kentucky Virtual Academy. Then, of course, the wraparound services for enrolled students, including counseling, academic support, and extracurriculars. We'll let our principal talk more about that because she has more of the details. And again, you can see on the right-hand side of the slide there with the student demographics, and it kind of gives you a lay of the land, so to speak, of the students that are attending currently. That's all I have.
Thank you. I guess it's my turn if you want to switch it on over there. Thank you. So I'm really excited. Just so my background experience, this is my third year participating in a virtual school, and I love that we have options for students. I was a past special education teacher, and what I found is a comprehensive in-person school is not always the right fit for our children. And it is just exciting that there is this new innovative process for schools, students to access school through virtual learning. So this is just real exciting. I'm going to take off my glasses here. Oh, nope, I'm going to need them. It's too far. This happens after 33 years of teaching. So we actually have live classes. So all of our students go to live classes every single day. So they are taught by a live teacher. It's direct instruction for those of you who are familiar with how we teach. It also, we allow for breakout rooms so students can do small group instruction and that collaborative work, which is really important for that higher cognitive level of thinking and problem solving. They get to work together. So we provide those same opportunities that you can provide also in the in-person. Another thing we do is we have the MTSS process for students who are struggling. We have to have those same kinds of supports and systems within our school to make sure all students are met at their level of instructional need. So we have an MTS process, we have interventions, we have remediations, just like an in-person school. Is it delivered the same? Pretty much it's delivered the same because we do it through small groups and we do it through pull-out breakout rooms. So it's, we try to keep it in that small group setting. We also have electives and enrichment opportunities, just like an in-person school, which is excellent. Especially I'm excited because there's always that one-off class. There's always that one subject that you can't find a teacher for because it's so specialized. As a part of the Stride supports, we're actually able to access national teachers who can help us with those specialized classes. Like, for example, Spanish and other foreign languages. Sometimes it's hard, like in a smaller school district, to be able to find someone to provide that level of elective because it's just hard to find those people. But because of the supports that are out there through the Stride program, we're able to connect students with electives they would not normally have access to. So that makes it really exciting exciting for us. We also have our system. We've had 20 years of experience with our learning management system. So earlier there was a discussion about, are we able to progress monitor our students and make sure that we're meeting their needs? Absolutely. Our Total View School program allows me as a principal to go in and see how the teachers are doing with their students. I can see failure rates. I can see passing rates. There is so much data that's available to me as a principal to provide those data teams that we have within the school the resources they need to analyze the data and create the programs that are needed for those students, making sure that we are attacking any deficits or gaps in learning, because the system allows us to do that. Our students participate in the Kentucky State Assessment right now with the Kentucky regulations. We will be offering that in person, and so our students will be required to come to that in-person testing format or wherever we're going to be doing it at, and they will be participating. We will be held to the same standard as any other school, as we are just a program of Cloverport, so therefore we are under those same guidelines. And we are going to be offering regional testing sites so that our families don't have to travel far in order to take their testing. In fact, we've already ordered all of the technology and it's ready to go. So we are preparing that for our May. Our student schedules really maximize the access for our students, because not only are they available to go to school, students, from our traditional time of, I'll use our Eastern, because we are a state that is divided into two time zones, Central and Eastern. So our Eastern, if you want to go by that, we go to school, and our kids go to school from 9 o'clock in the morning until 3:30 in the afternoon. So throughout that day, students attend live class connect sessions, which is our live instruction. Students also participate in their asynchronous work, is doing their assignments through the online programming. We do offer clubs through our program called Kids Zone. It's a virtual world where our students can find like-minded students who are interested in the same activities and interests, where they can meet virtually and have that social aspect. We also provide esports, which is excellent, as a lot of our kids are very technology savvy, so they get to participate in esports. And we also will be providing in the spring, as this is part of Stride's program, is in-person social activities that are regionally based, so that students can also have that socialization period that's really important for their kids. So I can talk forever, but we do have a lot of supports for families to make it most successful. We do have a video here of what a small group instruction could look like for students who need that small group instruction. It won't play? Okay, so this is what our learning management system looks like for students to access the platform. You can see here it lists the class connects. It's listing all of their live sessions, as well as the lessons at the bottom part where it says ELA, science, and geography. Those are actually the asynchronous part of the day where they go in and complete those assignments. This is at the high school, middle school level. It's a little bit more sophisticated for our students. So they will you can see where they have all of their live lessons listed, as well as their asynchronous lessons. So students have the flexibility. Also, we record every live session. So if a student, because of the flexibility we offer, has a job during the school day, or perhaps they're doing what do you call them? The globe trotters. If they're a globe trotter and they're in sports practices, obviously I wasn't into that, so but that gives them the ability to then be flexible with their schedule. So we record every lesson, so if a student is unavailable during our normal school hours, they can watch the recording of the lesson and be able to still get that instruction. And the great thing is our teachers also offer what we call office hours, and that's the help session. So if a student is struggling and they're like, oh, you know what, you did your instruction, I'm now working on the assignment and I'm struggling, the teachers have a dedicated time where kids can just walk in, just like you would do in a classroom, just walk in and say, hey, I didn't understand this concept, or this part of the assignment is really difficult. Can I have more help? And our teachers will give them one-on-one instruction for that. Okay.
We appreciate your attention, and we'll entertain questions.
Thank you
Representative.
for your presentation. This has been very informative today for all of us. I do have a question. Actually, I got a lot of questions, but I want to ask them all right now. You're operating on an attendance model now, correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
So your SEEK payment will be coming in arrears. I'm sure you have a contract with Stride K-12 to
Yes.
provide these services. So are they going to be receiving their payment in arrears as you receive your SEEK payment?
That is correct, yes, sir.
Okay. If you don't mind me asking, could you elaborate a little bit on what the fee is for this? Maybe other school districts are interested.
Sure.
What percent does Cloverport retain?
Absolutely.
And could you elaborate a little bit on the financial arrangement?
Essentially, the setup is that we look at the average daily attendance for the Kentucky Virtual Academy, and then any funding that is attached to enrollment at the Kentucky Virtual Academy. The setup is Stride K-12 retains 97% of that. The Cloverport Board of Education retains 3% of that.
We have a question from Representative Bojanowski.
Thank you for indulging me. I made my first one short so I could get one more in. So I'm a special education elementary school teacher, and I spent more than a year doing virtual special education instruction. And it was hard, and it was very difficult to reach my children in the same way I can do in the classroom. Can you explain a little bit about how special education works through the Kentucky Virtual Academy? Who provides the services? Who coordinates the ARC meetings? Those kind of details.
I'm going to kick that to Sally, as she has more direct hand in that.
We have a special programs manager who actually organizes all of our ARC meetings. She also makes sure that we also have all of our special education paperwork. We have the IEPs, the evaluations, etc. We have a meeting within the first 30 days of a student with a special ed services. We have a meeting to make sure that we can provide the services and at what level that we can provide them. We let the parents know what that's going to look like, what their responsibilities are, and what our responsibilities are. We have a teacher who teaches the MSD students with moderate to severe disabilities, as well as students with your learning, more of your learning disabled kind of students. So we have what we call collaborative time, where the the special education teacher goes into the general education classroom and co-teaches with them, and perhaps does a pull-out as needed for the students to address their IEP goals and objectives. We also offer just a standard pull-out program, where if students are more successful in just the standard pull-out, we'll do a small group with them in order to receive their special education individualized instruction. And the way that looks is, if it's during our special ed teachers are scheduled through the day for that collaborative time, that co-teaching time. And there's also parts of their day where they actually have it scheduled with the students to go in and do that individual teaching. With our students who are moderately to severely disabled, we have a teacher that is designated, and that, as you know, with your experience as being a special ed teacher, it's highly individualized at the level. We have a curriculum called Unique that specifically addresses students' needs at the moderate to severe disability level. And it's scheduled throughout the day based on their needs. You're welcome.
Senator Williams has a question.
Thank you. With the teacher shortage, we have teachers that are moving out of the profession for various reasons. They're not coming in. Do you think that you're retaining teachers who might otherwise have left the profession in to teach? I mean, can you give us a percentage or how that works with your teachers?
If I could, and I'll let Sally speak as well, but I'll be honest with you, and I kind of brag about this. Kentucky Virtual Academy is probably one of the only schools in the state that is fully staffed with fully certified teachers. It is a very desirable model for certain teachers. I can tell you, as interim commissioner Kenny said, I failed work from home. I would not do well in that model as an educator. But many teachers do thrive in this, and it's very sought after.
Can I give you the percentage of teachers who are choosing? No, I don't have that information. However, I can tell you that the teachers who choose to work virtually, as I have chosen, I also taught virtually as well as principaled virtually. People think, oh, it's easier to be a virtual teacher and a virtual administrator. Actually, it's just as hard as teaching in person. It's just different. So you have to think about it that way. You can't think of it as, oh, those teachers are just wanting an easier job. In fact, because your technology skills have to be up there and your ability to communicate and develop relationships needs to be at a high level. Because if you don't have those skills, the impact on the students can be negative. So we always want people who are strong. Our teachers who've chosen to be with us, when I asked them, why did you choose virtual? They wanted a different option. Some of them were actually thinking of leaving the profession because of some of the issues that are happening in in-person school. Some of the behaviors in classroom management, they're just kind of, the veterans are like, Sally, we're just done. We're done with that. And I still wanted to continue teaching, and this is a viable option for me. So those are the kinds of teachers that we are retaining. We also, every one of our teachers is an experienced teacher. We have not hired one brand new out of college teacher. They all have experience teaching. Some of them have virtual teaching experience, but all of them are Kentucky certified, and they are required, just like I am, to live in the state of Kentucky. So that makes it really great.
Thank you. The conversation's prompted a question for me. The teachers are not actually teachers at Cloverport School District, correct?
That is correct. They are actually employed by Stride K-12.
So as employees of Stride K-12, do they contribute to the teacher's retirement system, or are they in some type of other compensation retirement system?
They would be in a different system.
So
Yes, sir.
that's what I figured, but I just wanted to clarify that. So
Sure.
they're not school district employees, so they are not eligible to participate in TRS.
Correct.
All right, we have a question from Representative Raymond.
Thank you. Several quick mechanical concerns. Could the committee get a breakdown of students by county of residence?
We can get that information to you,
and
absolutely.
then same thing for the wait list, which I understand is extensive. I wanted to ask you, what's the largest class that you offer?
Can you clarify the question? What
The
do you mean?
largest class size. How many students would be in your largest class?
Right now, we have some classes are up to 100, and we have it based on the different. So the teacher can have a caseload, but we actually split the section into smaller sections so that our numbers can remain smaller. And so, in fact, we've created a new schedule that starts on Friday just so we can do that we can reduce those numbers. So right now we have some that are in the hundreds, but once we get the new schedule in, it'll be under that. And at our elementary level, most of ours are around 30 to 40.
Okay. I want to make sure we're abiding by state law.
Yes. So we just, you have that answer.
No, I was going to say, we have been communicating with the Department of Education on that, and we are working to resolve that issue.
Okay, great. And then do you know offhand your absence rate and your dropout rate?
Our dropout rate, and you mean withdrawal rate, is what I'm
Mhm.
going to say, because we haven't had students be
Right.
long enough to do the dropout. Right now, I think if I remember correctly, from 2 weeks ago, this is right before fall break, we had 15 students who had withdrawn. And our attendance rate right now, because it's very strict, our rules, the state of Kentucky requires 360 minutes of instructional time. Also within the Kentucky Department of Education, 234 minutes is the minimum that a student needs to attend. And so if they have not met the 234 minutes, then they are considered to be half-day truant or half-day absent. And so we are at 75% right now. Part of the issue is getting families to understand the technology and how to capture their attendance by logging in correctly, because we found that some weren't. And so that is one of the issues we are working with families so that they know this is how you log in and this is how you actually can capture your minutes. So when you look at that 75%, it's like, wow, that's pretty low. But in actuality, students are attending every day. We're just trying to get them to learn how to do it correctly so that they can be counted for full day, because otherwise our attendance would be much higher.
I got you. Thank
Yes.
you. What's the starting teacher salary?
I have not been told that, so I don't know.
If I can defer.
I think it's 50.
And then while someone's going to help us with that question, my last question is, so 97% of the SEEK funding goes to K-12. Does 97% of that money get spent on Kentucky students in Kentucky, or can some of that money go to the parent company, which is somewhere else?
I mean, personally, I cannot speak to their financial structure and how all of that is laid out. Obviously, though, the bulk has to go towards students. I mean, simply you look at your teacher salary, you look at the cost of curriculum, you look at those sorts of things. Anna may be able to speak better, and I'm sorry to put Anna on the spot, but she may be able to speak better to that.
Yeah, please come to the microphone and identify yourself for the record.
Everybody, my name is Anna Schultz. I'm a vice president at K-12. It is a pleasure to be with you today.
Could you please raise your right hand? I'll swear you in. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give, the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
Please
I almost
proceed.
said amen, so yes, sir. Ma'am, did you ask a question about starting salary? Yes. Is that what your question was? Yes. Yeah, for the majority of our teachers, we look at a starting salary anywhere between $45,000 and $50,000, depending on the role that they are going to serve. And then certainly experience.
You said for most of the starting teachers.
Mm-hmm.
What's the absolute floor?
45.
Okay. And then that question about that 97% of SEEK dollars, is 97% of the money that we budget for our students spent on Kentucky students in Kentucky, or does some of that money go to headquarters?
So the majority of those funds is invested back in the school when we look at teacher salaries and the expenses in terms of curriculum, instruction, employment, all of those that takes to run a traditional brick and mortar school, right? Those are the operational costs that we have for the school, no different than a brick and mortar. So the investment back into the people, into the personnel, into the programs that it takes to run the school, services that it takes to run the school, certainly are all anchored here in the state.
Could you follow up with us and let us know how much of the money that we've budgeted for Kentucky students is leaving Kentucky and coming to headquarters?
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure.
At that point, we're going to cut it off for questions at this segment. I've got one member of leadership in here, Senator Givens. I'm going to ask forgiveness. The next segment's critically important. So we're going to proceed.
Mr. Chairman, I will encourage you to proceed based on the chairman's prerogative, but do know that we are on a strict 2-hour time limit.
I understand.
And it's not because we want to cut conversations off.
I understand.
Staff has to turn these rooms for another meeting, and
Sure.
the pressures are on them to get it done.
I understand.
So
I understand.
I
We've had a
will
lot of
encourage-
questions today.
And thank you for giving me the chance to respond. I will encourage any chairman watching that thinks it's okay, please don't presume it's okay solely from this one example.
Sure, I appreciate that. All right, so if our next presenters could come forward on absenteeism and truancy, and actually this topic is going to be a lead-in to a topic in Chair West's meeting next month, and I think this is something that we critically need to discuss. All right. After everyone gets settled, would you please identify yourself for the record? And then I will swear you in.
Go ahead, get on.
Joey Kilburn, Director of People Personnel, Simpson County Schools.
Good afternoon. Matthew Courtney, Policy Advisor, Kentucky Department of Education.
Marcy Prater, Boyd County Schools Director of Pupil Personnel.
Che Ritter, Kentucky Department of Education.
Matt Ross, Associate Commissioner for the Office of Finance and Operations, Kentucky Department of Education.
Okay, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Please proceed.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and try to get through KDE's part as fast as possible so you can hear from, we've got two DPPs here that are really sort of the real world practitioners. KDE's main role is to, collect and aggregate data on this and then to provide some support. So I'll go ahead and let Che get going.
I'm going to be very quick with respect to the committee. Chronic absenteeism data is collected at the department, the definition of which is 90% or less attendance as FTE. We calculate this by dividing students' FTE present minutes by the instructional minutes and rounding to the nearest whole percent. And one important point staff wanted to really emphasize is, as we say, it's about 10% or more triggers that chronic absenteeism, and that's about 17 days on most calendars. But these are minutes that can add up. It doesn't have to be I missed a day. It can definitely add up pretty quickly with just minutes. Truancy, different animal. First two sections are about the age. And then once you've been reported truant 2 or more times, it's considered habitual. This is in 159, 150. So timing is everything, of course. Right at the end of this month, this 2022-23 school year data will become available. We'll be glad to share that with everybody on the committee. We are curious, too, what it will look like right now, or I should say in 2018-19, you see about 18.5%. Right before we came over, we checked the year before. It's about 18%, I believe, in 17-18, so pretty consistent number there. But we'll see in the next less than 15 days what the 2022-23 school year looks like. And I will hand it off.
KDE's support to schools and districts related to chronic absenteeism is housed in the Office of Continuous Improvement and Support. Just a few things that we do to help those school districts. We maintain a digital toolkit that has best practices and resources and research guides that is available on our website for anyone to access at any time. We also offer regular webinars and are frequent presenters on the conference circuit throughout the summer and the school year as educators gather for professional learning. Probably the most valuable tool that we offer to our school districts is our early warning identification tools. These tools utilize a machine learning algorithm to review all of the data that we have based on our students and then predict which students will be at highest risk for low attendance. Those tools are remarkably accurate. They live inside the Infinite Campus portal and are considered part of that student's official education record. And then we also provide targeted assistance to schools and districts by request. So if a district, if a DPP or a school leader is really challenged by a particular student, a particular set of circumstances, they can reach out to the department and we have staff prepared to assist them with that very targeted and specific concern.
Go ahead. Yeah, so I'm going to start off and just talk a little bit about the impact that COVID has had on school attendance, and it's had an ongoing impact, okay? We're not obviously where we were at the depths of the pandemic. We've come back, but we've not come back to where we were before, and I believe there's a couple specific reasons for that and some things maybe that we can do moving forward to start to address that and get back to where we were before. But I think the biggest things are attitudes and habits around good attendance have changed. That you've got a lot of students, if they're in 3rd, 4th grade, from the time they entered school, COVID was a factor, and and good attendance is a habit. And we told people, stay home just in case, and that's what we needed to do at the time. Okay, but now people establish that habit of, oh gosh, I don't feel as well as maybe I have on the best day of my life, so I want to stay home today, and it creates that habit, and then that attitude of, okay, well, you were sitting next to somebody last week who got sick, so you got to go home for 10 days, and then you come back for 2 days, and then we do it to you again, and you create an attitude about, well, being here must not really be important because they'll send me home pretty willy-nilly like it's not a big deal. Now we've got to change those attitudes and change those habits. Okay, go ahead. And then motivations to attend school, I think, have also been affected by the pandemic, and I'll get into more of that just a little bit later around, that I think that you have to have a purpose to be there, and that's one of the things that we've got to do, and I think some people lost their purpose for being at school along the way. So Marcy's going to talk to you a little bit about some of the statistics. You can go ahead and click through these, and everybody can read those, but then Marcy's got some graphs, and we'll get into that.
So during my doctoral research, I studied the average daily attendance, chronic absenteeism, and truancy data across our state. And so I helped Joey get some of this data together. We compared Eastern and Western Kentucky data. And so basically these charts give you a breakdown of about 5 districts across each of these areas. I had a boatload of data from several of my districts in Eastern Kentucky. You can see there that Ashland Independent had a drop of in ADA of negative 2.4%. Boyd, my district, had negative 2.9%. Carter, negative 3% in ADA. Paintsville Independent had just a 1.0% in ADA, and then Raceland Independent lost 2% in ADA. When you go across the state down to where Joey is, Barron County was negative 1.65, Butler was 1.5, Edmondson was negative 1.7, Logan was negative 2.1, and Simpson County was negative 1.6. So as I was studying the trends and the data, I could see that basically no matter what area of the state, we were all trending about the same, averaging about a 2% ADA loss when you look at the average daily attendance across the state of Kentucky. Again, with truancy, we saw a significant rise in the data. Again, those same school systems, we saw a 13% increase at Ashland, a 6% increase in my district. At Boyd, 11% at Carter, a 6% increase at Paintsville Independent, and a 4% increase at Raceland Independent. Across the state, over in the western end, we've got an 11% at Barron, 1% increase, 2% increase at Edmondson, 16% at Logan County, and an 8% increase at Simpson County. When I averaged all that and did my little T-scores and everything, again, another average of about 8% data with truancy data. And again, going back to the just overall attitude and just concern for where students view attendance and coming to school. The last and most significant would be our chronic absenteeism. And as we talked in our meeting earlier last week, Kentucky has some pretty high expectations when it comes to chronic absenteeism, and we are averaging about 15.6% across Eastern Kentucky with chronic absenteeism. We've got an increase of 12% in Ashland, 16% at Boyd County, 17% in Carter, 11% in Paintsville, and 22% at Raceland. In Western Kentucky, they're averaging a 12.8% increase in chronic absenteeism, with 20 at Butler County, 10% at 20 at Barron County, 10% in Butler County, 14 at Edmondson, 10% in Logan, and 10% in Simpson County. So again, I call myself a numbers nerd, but these numbers speak significantly important to us as DPPs of how much attendance is being impacted since we've returned back to the classrooms in our public schools.
Okay, so then we were asked to say, okay, what do we do? What can we do? What programs are out there to improve attendance? And my opinion is that there's really not a program to improve attendance. Improving attendance is about making your schools a place that people want to be and a place that works for the students. So that you got to have those foundational pieces of that culture and climate, that finding purpose. Why does it matter? That we recognize, celebrate, and reward attendance, And then you get down into, okay, once you put those things into place, you might be able to have some programs, so to speak, that help improve attendance around interventions where you remove barriers to good school attendance, you create awareness. Sometimes I think people, I'll talk to parents, oh gosh, I didn't realize he had missed 15 days. Okay, I'll get serious about it. So, I think those things happen. And then finally at the bottom of the rung, systems of accountability. Okay. So culture and climate. How do you make your school a place that students want to be? And one of the things I always ask my principals is, what would a visitor to your school say is important to you? I might ask you what's important to you, okay? But if I drop somebody in there from California that doesn't know anything about Franklin Simpson High School, and they walk around and they listen to the conversations that are going on, what would they say is important to you? And that speaks more to what's important to you than what you say is important to you, all right? Frame conversations in your school around things that you want to see and not things you don't want to see. I've been at Franklin Simpson since 1998, and at that time I've seen our high school fall into PLA status, which is persistently low achieving. I guess that's not a term you use anymore, but most of you probably remember that. Our principal was removed, a new principal was put in place, and that was one of the big things that he did, was focus on, let's make this school about the kids that are doing the right thing. 95% of the kids in our school are doing the right thing, and they want to do the right thing. But when you spend 90% of your conversations on the other 5%, then those kids don't feel like this school's about them. They feel like it's about everybody. Now they're not proud of their school. Now you're not empowering your leaders, and that was a big thing I saw Tim Schlosser do at Franklin Simpson High School that turned it from a PLA school into a turnaround model school. Was he made the conversation about the kids that were doing the right thing. He empowered student leaders to be leaders and make the school a place that people could be proud of. And our attendance improved. And Joey was doing a good job as DPP, but he wasn't doing anything different than he was doing before. All right. Recognition, rewarding, reinforcements, relationships, all that's part of, the model for making your school a place people want to be. Symbols and traditions. What are the things that make us unique? What makes people proud to be here, proud to be part of whatever your school is? And then creating an environment where people feel safe, addressing bullying. Nobody wants to be somewhere where they don't feel safe. All right? Nobody wants to be somewhere where they're getting picked on. I think the power of bullying comes in isolation. And so, again, it comes back to empowering your student leaders to say, that doesn't happen here. That'll go further than anything that you put in place from a disciplinary standpoint. You got to address it from a disciplinary standpoint. But if your student leaders say, hey, we don't do that here, that those victims of bullying don't feel isolated, and then that's what I think about the social media bullying and stuff. What's more isolating than being on social media because you got no support? Where there's nobody to say, hey, come sit with us. Hey, don't listen to what they say. Nobody's paying attention to them. They don't matter. And then where people feel safe. If there's fighting happening in your school and on a regular basis, I don't care what types of attendance programs you have in place, people are going to say, am I going to be the one to get beat up tomorrow? Am I going to be the one to get bullied tomorrow? And the legislature did a lot of things last year to help us out with improving discipline, and we appreciate that, but it's something we've got to continue to do. That I was talking to a counselor not too long ago from one of our larger districts, and she was telling me they would have fights pretty much every day. I'm a fan of sporting events. I like to go to ball games, and gosh, I've hesitated recently because I see videos of people in the stands getting beat up, and I don't want to go and get beat up, and so people might think that. And, I've been beat up before, but I might not handle it as well the next time. I'm a little older than the last time it happened. But so I just think that's important. If you really want to improve attendance, you got to start with those things. All right. Finding purpose. No one wants to be somewhere where they are not good at what's going on. They don't get along with people there, and it serves no purpose for them. So what's your purpose, right? It's about finding goals. We tell kids this all the time. Okay, this kid doesn't want to come to school. I'm trying to help you connect with school. Well, why? Why do you want to go to school? Well, I got to have a goal. Well, where do your goals come from? Well, they come from your passions. Where do your passions come from? They come from your interests. Where do your interests come from? They come from your experiences. So that's what it really comes down to. How do we use school to create experiences for kids? People don't just have interests. They're not just born with them. And those experiences might come from the CTE class that you really like, or maybe I'm on an athletic team, or maybe I'm in a club, and it might not even be that thing, but the people I meet through that thing that I think is very important, and that creates those experiences that now I know what I'm interested in. Now I can establish goals. Now I can get people interested in coming to school because it serves a purpose for them. Then guess what happens? It solves those other two problems too. School serves a purpose for me. I found something I'm good at, and then I connect with like-minded people that are interested in the same thing. So it solves all three of those problems in that first statement just by having those experiences. Well, guess what happened during COVID? Our most needy students had no experiences. All of our students lacked experiences, but, let's think about who did it probably impact the most. Who was the most isolated, during that time. So we're still, I talk to more and more kids. What are you interested in? What are your goals? Gosh, I don't know. And the reason I believe it is because they lacked those experiences during critical times in their lives. So it's more important than ever that we find ways to create those experiences for them. All right. Also, I think it's important, if we say attendance is important, we go into our schools and we'll see signs up about where we are on the accountability testing and different things. But if attendance is important, we got to create goals. We got to let everyone in on the goals. We got to monitor the progress towards those goals. We got to celebrate them collectively and individually. And I'll tell you the truth, that's something I backed off on because, am I promoting perfect attendance right now? I don't know. Gosh, maybe that's not a good idea to encourage people to come to school every day. Maybe somebody should have stayed home. I might be motivating them to come when they shouldn't have come. But I think it's time that we start to get back to pushing that envelope a little bit. And then removing barriers. What do I see as the most common barriers to school attendance? Home or family situation. Maybe a family doesn't value education. Maybe a parent recently got incarcerated. Maybe there's domestic violence in the home, and it's hard for a student to get motivated to want to come to school when maybe there's drug use in the home, and it's all of a sudden school's not that important to that kid. Conflicts, peer-related issues. I broke up with my girlfriend. Well, you'll be over it in 2 weeks. Well, it doesn't feel like it right now. Untreated mental or physical health conditions. Those things obviously are things that's our job, to identify these things and then put the interventions in place. Academic deficiencies. I'm not very good in math, so I don't want to go to math, so I avoid going to school. And then guess what? The more I avoid going to school, the further I get behind in math, and the less I want to go, right? All right. And then, again, I think a big part of it's creating awareness about attendance. One of the things I've stopped doing, but I think I'll get back to is just the annual letters to families when they hit that chronic absenteeism mark, because I would always get a lot of calls. Oh, my kid didn't have any unexcused absences last year. Yes, ma'am, I'm aware of that. This just tells you they miss more than 10% of the days, and the research tells us if they miss more than 10% of the days again next year, they'll fall behind a half a grade level from where they would have been, and if you do it again the year after that, it's going to be even more than that. And so things that create conversation, I think that's good. When people call me sometimes and they're mad, I think, well, I got their attention. So I, sometimes I gauge that on what worked. And then a layered response to student attendance, creating watch lists, student contacts, parent contacts. What does it take to get to the bottom line to motivate that person to come to school? I call that kid in. Hey, why are you missing? Oh, they're paying attention. I better stop missing. Now they've called my parent. I better stop missing. Now some guy showed up at the door with a letter talking about truancy charges and those kind of things. Well, I better stop missing, whatever it is. And sometimes it's just about finding those bumps in time. This works for a little while. Then we move to the next layer and it works for a little while. And we move to the next layer and it works for a little while, all up until we're buying time, because I talked about, creating those interests, establishing goals. Well, that doesn't happen overnight. So sometimes we just need to buy time till we can get there. And what can we do to get them in school? All right. And then finally, I'll just talk about some systems of accountability. And I'll say that, I think it varies greatly from district to district. I'll tell you, I'm very fortunate. The family court judge in Simpson County has been great to work with. The county attorney in Simpson County has been great to work with. Our court designated worker has been great to work with. Our DJJ worker has been great to work with. We're a community, and I think that it's just hard if you don't have those relationships. If those people don't work together, it doesn't matter what systems you put in place. It makes things tough. Our fair team, it's all those people I just named, and I think a lot of times we have success with our fair team. You might talk to other districts and they'll say, gosh, no, I hate the fair team. Don't even talk to me about fair team. I will say at times for those most challenging cases, the process slows it down to where we've dug a pretty big hole before we get to where we can deal with it. And if there's anything to improve, I would say it would be around that. But overall, I think a lot of times it's about just being able to establish those relationships with your community partners, and then also keeping it in front of your school leaders. And I think that's very important to keep it in front of your school leaders, because a lot of times that kid that's not there, they're not a problem. And I know what it's like to be in a school and you got a lot of problems that are in your face, and the problem is not in your face. So that's my job, is to keep that problem in their face and push them on dealing with those things. I'm going to turn it back over to Marcy at this time.
Our systems of accountability, that's okay, that I've talked to with some of the DPPs in my region have really taken a step up a little bit. We are not as fortunate as Joey and some of his friends downstate with fair teams and family courts. So we took a different approach. In Boyd County, we started a district service team at our middle and high school, and we have partnered with our community service partners that are offering some mental health services in our schools, and we're meeting kids that are struggling with coming to school, maybe just with anxiety, or just struggling in general. So we're targeting those kids through our district service teams. We're meeting them at the doors in the mornings, making sure they're having an easy transition from home to school, and we are checking on them throughout the day. An adult in the school has partnered with them throughout the day and is really just checking on them periodically, just to make sure that they know that they're loved, just making that one-on-one connection and focusing on relationships. Attendance teams have been formed in our elementary schools, and parent engagement teams and meetings have been formed in some of our elementary schools, in some of our surrounding elementaries and counties, that just so that we're focusing and bringing chronic absenteeism, truancy to the forefront of these parents' attention, so that they realize how important it is that their kids are in school, in front of teachers, and just there and actively engaged learners, so that they're getting that high quality education that we're also worried about daily.
Okay. And so then finally, why does this matter? I grew up in Hazard, Kentucky. My dad was a coal miner, and he didn't take sick days. There was no such thing, and he instilled that in me. And I think that's something that served me well in my life, just that value of just these things. And I try to share this with the students I work with. Show up every day on time. Do what you're supposed to do while you're there. And if other people get into drama, you stay out of the drama. And I think that's why this matters so much. And I talk to employers in our community a lot, and I'm sure a lot of you folks up here in front of me, you employ people. And if I told you I can bring you an employee who can show up every day on time, they'll do what they're asked to do while they're there, and if their coworkers get into drama, they'll stay out of it, you'll say, yeah, I'll employ that person. So I'm giving you skills that will allow you to be able to take care of a family, to be a productive member of society. So that's just why I think this is so important. Thank you guys for hanging in there with us today. I know it's been a long day. Thanks for giving us a little extra time.
Well, thank you for your presentation. And I want to thank everybody at the table, and I want to especially thank Joey and Marcy for the work you do. I know how difficult it is. I'm going to have one question here for Senator Titchener. Then we're going to adjourn.
Okay, thank you so much. I have my little student district profile, and I just love all the data on there. So in 2018, compared to 2022, we have about a 90% graduation rate. That hasn't changed. but yet the chronic absenteeism is through the roof. Are there consequences? Are there not consequences as far as kids just graduating even though they're not showing up for 10% of the school year? How are we addressing that? Are we putting more hardship on teachers to catch these students up? Are they just not catching up and we're just passing them through the system?
You know, I think that probably varies greatly by district, where you're talking about how that happens. I know for us that, you know, we require 32 credits, which is well above the state minimum. But during COVID, and then during the virtual, a lot of kids didn't do well with virtual. Some did very well with virtual, and I'm not, you know, I'm very happy with the virtual and happy with people that it works for, but it didn't work for everybody. And so I know for us, there were a lot of those folks that we, you know, allowed to graduate with less than the state minimum, and we're just kind of now cycling that out. That, or not less than state, I'm sorry, with the state minimum, less than our district's requirement, because, you know, I guess we could have just not graduated a bunch of people, and that would have been, you know, I don't know who that would have been good for, but yeah, that is, that I don't know. That's a good question, but I think there are several factors there, and I think it would probably vary greatly depending on, you know, where it is you're talking about. I do think that we probably put more systems in place on, credit recovery and those kinds of things through the pandemic. And that, you know, I don't know. Is that as good? I don't know.
As the kids start to miss and the truancy and chronic absenteeism raises, you know, I think that's where we start to focus on, let's catch them up. That's where the teacher starts to go into panic mode, and how can we help this kid? Because ultimately, that's the teacher in us, and we all want to just see that kid succeed. So let's find an avenue, whether it be credit recovery or, you know, how can we ESS services, you know, an alternate route to education or graduation, whatever. I think it's just, you see, we tried to find any avenue we can to help those kids be successful.
Thank you again for being here. This is an issue that Co-Chair West and I are very concerned about, as you are, and we're going to continue this conversation. Our next meeting is going to be in 2 weeks on November 1st at 11 o'clock. The meeting's adjourned.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you. You're good.